Hello and welcome to Tailgate Talk, the Week 9 edition, coming to you from Thompson Field at Lisbon High School. Greyhounds getting ready for the Campbell Conference Class C playoffs and have a big matchup this week against Winslow and Kalle. When I found out that Winslow was coming over to Class C, I was hoping for this kind of matchup. It wasn't going to happen in the regular season, but you could just see this coming in the playoffs. You're talking about one of the two most storied programs in Western Maine.
Yeah, and these two teams met in the controlled scrimmage back on the first Monday of the preseason. Of course, neither one of them showed a lot back then, so there's really nothing to be taken from that. Two teams that I think Winslow dropping down to Class C, expected kind of what it got to become more competitive. They've had kind of a 2 or 3 year lull. They've got some typical tough Winslow kids. They've got the freshman back in Dylan Hapworth, who's been explosive at times, and of course they've got the big fullback. They've got a quarterback in Donald Camp who runs the offense well. They've kind of had their ups and downs though, especially in the second half of the season. The loss at Poland the other night, kind of not what you want going into the playoffs, certainly. And Lisbon had its loss to Trape 2 weeks ago and rebounded with a nice road win at Winthrop, in which things really went. It was the typical Lisbon almost postseason equation that they like to have. The special teams contributed. They had a couple of big plays on offense. Their defense was pretty much lights out all night. They're going to be at home where they're extremely comfortable here at Glennis Thompson Field, and it's a 4-5 matchup. You would normally think that the home team would have a little bit of an advantage. Both teams with the same records, similar. Not a lot of common opponents. They both lost to Trape, I think, during the regular season. So going to be interesting to see what comes out of that. And the winner will have a shot at Yarmouth, who I guess is probably considered the far and away favorite in Western C.
Yeah, Lisbon has some injuries that's working around as well. Zach Sproul was back playing some quarterback last week, and Quincy Thompson saw a lot of time behind the center as well. Zach Sproul's still calling the plays in the huddle, so it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that situation as well. The matchup involving Yarmouth, Cal mentioned, with number 8 Oak Hill, and Oak Hill played them last year in the semis and kept it a game. 28-7, I believe, was the final outcome in favor of Yarmouth in that one. Can they keep it that competitive this time?
I believe this is probably the third year in a row that they've met in the playoffs, a third time out of 4. It seems like these teams are always on a collision course. They play that Week 2 game during the regular season. This year, that game was no contest, 51-7. A lot of weird things. A late start because the lights went out, and I think Oak Hill was probably caught off guard by that, but it was lights out early in that game. Yarmouth with so many weapons. They've had some issues toward the end of the season with kids out of the lineup. I know the game you saw, I believe, against Telstar, they had Overhog was out of the lineup that night for disciplinary reasons, but they had other kids step in, which is surprising because they don't have a lot of bodies on that sideline. Where they're not going to wow you. People think of Yarmouth as kind of a Class B size school in Class C, but they don't have all that many clean uniforms standing on the sidelines when they're playing. But they're definitely the team that's the most explosive. They've scored the most points. This is probably the last 3 years now. 2 years ago, when they kind of started this run and got to the regional final, they were starting to show that explosiveness on offense. Oak Hill's kind of had an identity crisis on its own offense the last few weeks, alternating quarterbacks, and they've struggled all year long turning over the ball at bad times, and they're kind of going in on a 3-game losing streak here after a 3-game winning streak in the middle of the season. So all signs point to Yarmouth, but Oak Hill's at least got the confidence they've played with the Clippers in the past.
That's a crossover matchup. They're all crossover matchups, all 4 games this week, and the other one is Dirigo going to Kittery to face a pretty physical Trape team.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing we've heard all year long about Trape. Even in the preseason when I was talking to Coach Moynihan here at Lisbon about it, he said they're a team to watch. They just love to hit. They're big and they're strong. That has played itself out. They've come up. They've won some big games on the road this year. They went to Winslow and won, which we all know nobody does very often. Dirigo went to Winslow and almost won. I kind of had one slip away there in overtime. But Dirigo, don't count them out. They've been to the playoffs 4 years in a row now. They are explosive. They have a weapon in Brian Blackman who can score from anywhere in the field. Ben Holmes at quarterback has just had a tremendous last couple of weeks to the regular season. Dirigo's been through a whirlwind of emotions up there, and they really put together their most complete game of the year at Telstar in a 54-6 win on Saturday to clinch that playoff spot in a game, as far as I can tell, they had to win. So their playoffs have already started long before this week, and going to Trape, certainly nothing to lose. Long trip, you got to get over that bus ride and get off to a quick start. not let Trape get up 14-0. But as a 2-7 game, I don't think it's a typical 2-7 game. I think this might be the best of the those matchups on that end of the bracket.
I think Dierigo needs to withstand an early charge from Trape. They're going to come out very emotional. They were very disappointed losing to Oak Hill in the quarterfinals last year. Case of being a little too happy to be there, and they know that. And I think they're going to be ready to play on Saturday. Well, I'll wrap it up for the Class C edition of Tailgate Talk. We'll be back here next week with the semifinal games for Kalle Oaks, Randy Whitehouse. See you.